Hello everyone, welcome to another Voice Essentials Hangout, live hangout if you will. It's so good to be with you, and I'm so glad to see so many people already jumping into the live chat. Good to see all the regulars with us. I won't go through all of you because you're a growing number of people and I couldn't possibly name everyone. We are in for a real great live hangout today. But before we get into introducing our guest, Dr. Shannon Coates from Canada, you guys are in for a real treat today. This lady really knows her stuff, as many of our guests do here on the live hangouts. But before we get into it, hey, I just want to say a shout out to those of you who watch this as a replay. It's so good to have you watching the show as well. Of course, we do these live hangouts every Monday at 2 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. And I know for many of you in the Northern Hemisphere, that means that you have to stay up late to watch this. In fact, Dr. Coates has so graciously joined us. It's midnight where she is. And so it's good to have her stay up, past her bedtime to join us. I just wanted to let you know, remember I told you a couple of weeks ago, or might have even been last week, that I've got a new big video coming up, and we're about 1 month away from its launch, and it's a new video that I'm hoping is really going to, simplify, and here's the topic, everyone. I've been holding this, a little bit off to the side, but here it is, front and center. We're going to be looking at how the singing voice works. My animator is busy and scurrying away getting all the animations together. I've had it reviewed, had the script reviewed by an ear, nose and throat doctor, a laryngologist, a friend of mine from down in, I think she's in Sydney. So got the tick on that, and fortunately, there was nothing wrong with it, so that was good. And so anyway, wanted to let you know about that. It will go live in about a month's time. I'm very excited. I think you guys are going to love it. And as we draw close to it, I'll tell you a little bit more about it. And I'll be asking you guys to share it and to share it on your social media platforms and amongst Twitter and Facebook and all of the others that all of you cool kids are using. So that's a good thing. The other thing I just wanted to let you know before we introduce Dr. Coates, the other thing I want to let you know, I've ummed and ahed over this for quite some time. I've just added a PayPal donation button to basically the description of every video, and also onto the channel page. The reason I've done that is some of you have asked, how can you support the channel beyond just, buying the CD, for example, and which is what I would encourage you to do if you haven't already got the CD. The link's down here, and that would be the first way to support the channel, and that way you actually get something for that support. But some of you wanted to go a step further, and so I've put a donation button onto the description of this video, and it'll be on all of the other videos and the channel page. It's not something that I'm just realizing we don't have a lot of volume. I wonder if that's a bit better. That looks a bit better. I'd killed the volume. We had volume issues during Kate Baker's video, and I was just conscious of not anyway. So I wanted to let you know, I'm not going to make a big deal of it. It's not something I want to really press upon you to use. Wanted to make it available to those of you who do want to use it and support the channel. As you know, it is a lot of work to put these together. I love doing it. I love the creative process about creating the videos for you guys. And I'm going to continue doing that regardless of whether no donations come through or not, but wanted to let you know that. Hey guys, let's get into today's video because I want to spend as much time giving this lady, a friend of mine, someone I'm really proud to call a friend, and a respected colleague. I want to give her as much video time as I possibly can. So let's get straight into it, and when we come back, I'll introduce you to Dr. Shannon Coates.
Sound check. Check 1, check 2.
So we will start off with, the correct titles. In fact, I saw your Facebook post today about monikers. So let's start off with, welcome to the show, Dr. Coates. It's good to have you join us. Thank you for staying up late to do so, because you're in Canada. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and whereabouts in Canada you are.
I am in a little town, currently in a little town called Holland Landing, which is about 45 minutes on a good traffic day, which are pretty rare. In fact, right now, I'm about 45 minutes north of Toronto. Tomorrow morning at 7, I will be about an hour and a half north of Toronto. Yeah.
So we've not only got you up late, you've then got to get up early. Is that what you're?
Yes.
So that's
exactly what I'm saying.
Is this your way of rubbing it in? Is it? We've just doubled the price. It's so good to have you join us. Tell us a bit more about you and how you got into this singing thing, and then because you're a highly educated lady, and tell us a bit more about your focus and what drives you in this world of singing.
Well, that's a good question. I'll try to keep it brief. I did an undergraduate in vocal performance at the University of Toronto. And when I graduated there, I'm not going to say what year, but anyway, at some point I graduated, and I pursued singing classically for a couple of years, but I did not have the tools to sing professionally at that time, and I also felt that it wasn't the lifestyle for me. So I stopped singing classically, and around the time that I did do that, when I stopped singing classically, I sort of went on tour with my parents, who were who were at the time speaking in churches, and so they were in Europe, and so I used my language skills, all of those diction classes that I did in my undergraduate degree, and I led contemporary worship in German and French in Switzerland, France, Germany, and of course in English in other countries as well, for their services that they did. So wow. I did a big switch in the kind of singing that I did, and I'd always been involved with contemporary worship, of course, through growing up. My parents were pastors, but that was a big switch, obviously, from my education. And I didn't sing classically then again until about 10 years later, when my daughter was born, and I was working in entirely another field at that time, and I didn't want to go back to that field. I was working in finance, and I was bored. I was really bored, and my daughter and people had asked me for voice lessons the entire time that I had been not singing classically anyway, and primarily, in fact, people in the church had been asking for voice lessons. So I thought, this is the perfect opportunity. I've got maternity leave. In Canada, we have great maternity leave. So I've got maternity leave, and I'm going to just see whether I like this teaching thing, whether I can do it. I don't know. And so I did. I took on a few students, and turns out I loved it. I also found out pretty quickly that I didn't know what I was doing. So there was a master's degree just started at about the time that I started teaching again at the University of Toronto again. And I heard about that and thought that might be the thing that I should do, a master's degree in pedagogy. Now, the problem was that it's a master's degree, it's a performance degree specializing in pedagogy. So, and the performance degree is in classical voice, and I hadn't sung classically in a very long time. So I went to a local teacher, and started and basically just said, I don't even know if I can do this anymore. I took like one of the 24 Italian hits and, tried to sing it, and she said, you can do this. I can get you there. And so between her and then I also started to take some lessons with Lorna MacDonald, who is the head of the voice pedagogy program at the University of Toronto. And so got into my master's, did the voice pedagogy master's, which is again a performance degree. So started to sing classically again, started to do a lot more singing actually, which filled my soul. It's just beautiful, wonderful, wonderful to be able to do. And there's something about doing something that you never thought you would ever do again, and being able to do it well. And yeah, that was very, very special. And then went directly from the master's into my doctorate. And the doctorate program was actually started for me by Lorna at the University of Toronto. So again, it's a performance degree specializing in voice pedagogy. So I was the first person to graduate from the University of Toronto with a doctorate in voice pedagogy.
Wow.
And that was 2 years ago. Now it took me a while to get that doctorate because I had a full studio, and I was also teaching courses by that time as well. So I teach undergraduate voice pedagogy courses at a couple of universities here in Southern Ontario. So I was doing lots at the same time as well as performing finally. So yeah, and that was 2 years ago that I graduated with the doctorate. And so
you have been,
of course, call me
busy,
Dr. Coates, but Shannon is fine.
Yeah. You have been a busy lady, and look, anyone who takes on the doctoral journey is,
as you know,
brave, silly, crazy busy. So yeah,
all
it
of
was,
the things.
you know, I met you, I think, in person back at ICVT here in Brisbane. Was that where we first met?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's right.
And
I think I was maybe halfway through at that point.
I think you were, yeah. But I don't think I'd ever actually heard your story just like that. And I'm struck by the similarities of your story to mine, given that I started in Christian worship as a worship pastor also. So, so similar. So how would you describe yourself? Do you describe yourself now as a classical singer who teaches classical pedagogy? What hybrid are we talking here?
That's a great question. So I teach whatever walks through my studio door, frankly.
Yeah.
Or I'm happy to teach whatever walks through my studio door. And I consider myself primarily a functional teacher, and I know that word is kind of loaded. But what I mean by that is it doesn't matter what style you want to sing, I can help. And I can make sure that you're doing it healthily and efficiently, and that you're achieving the sounds that you want to achieve in a way that is the most efficient and probably the healthiest way for you to be able to do so. And I am very good with classical style and languages, of course, and all that sort of thing. And I'm very good with music theater style, and I'm very good with many contemporary styles. However, if you're a country singer, or a jazz singer, or there are some other styles where I'm just like, I can get you singing really well, but the style, I've got a colleague who's going to help you with the style, because that's, and also, mic technique. I understand, and working with a soundboard, and I mean, I understand the concepts, and I can do it. But if you're coming to me, but there are people who can do it better. Mm-hmm. And so if you're coming to me, I'm going to give you my wheelhouse is you singing really well. So that's how I describe myself. And my studio actually is primarily now actually other voice teachers. So I teach a lot of voice teachers. Yeah. So voice teachers come if they're primarily classically trained, to learn how to sing, how to belt, to learn how to do music theater styles, and then how to teach them, of course, for themselves. Or they find that they're teaching them, but they can't demonstrate well. So like, how do I demonstrate well? So, or primarily, jazz singers who want to understand the function of the instrument a little bit better.
Yeah.
Often the jazz side of things, they don't get that sort of level of understanding of the function of the instrument the same way. So there's room there to have a little bit more understanding of how the instrument works.
Yes.
They can make sounds. They can do amazing things with their instruments. I mean, they can make sounds, but they're not sure how they're actually doing it.
Yeah. And again, it's interesting to hear how you reflect, how you describe yourself, because in many respects, I'm a mirror image of you. I think of myself as a singing voice specialist, as really directed towards function. But my style is rock, pop, country.
Yes.
And so if someone wants classical, rep style, I am not your man. Okay.
Right.
So that's good. It's good for us to know where we're coming from, isn't it? And what your was it wheelhouse, the term you used before?
Wheelhouse is my
It's a term I'm familiar with, but it's not an Aussie colloquial term, wheelhouse. I don't know
where it even comes from.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, neither do I. It sounds very Mississippi River, doesn't it? Wheelhouse.
Yeah, I'm gonna say if you don't know it and I don't really know it, I'm gonna say it's probably Southern American.
American. It sounds. Anywho, what does it matter? Okay, let's jump into today's topic, because I wanna get in, and I just want to remind everyone, if you're doing the live chat, make sure that you in the live chat you ask your questions. I've seen some questions coming up already. We will get to Q&A later in the show. We won't make Shannon stay up too late, so we won't go too crazy. I think I forgot to say at the beginning of the show. So Shannon, you're staying up late. Everyone should be really thankful. I'm doing this on my public holiday. We have a public holiday.
Oh,
here
heavens!
In Queensland, only in Queensland, I think. So on my day off, everyone, I'm here for you. No. I do love.
Hero.
I do love these hangouts, and I love engaging with everyone. Okay, so I said all of that tongue in cheek. Everyone, don't write letters. Okay, let's jump into talking about. I'm very nervous about this topic. Let's talk about developing. You wrote this question. I'm gonna lay it at your feet. Developing a personalized and fast warm-up.
Yes.
Okay.
And as we were saying earlier, perhaps fast should have been efficient. Developing a personalized, efficient warm-up.
And I'm just
yes.
Okay.
Fast is good too, though.
And so I'm just letting everyone know we've got low bandwidth for some reason from you. So there's a big black screen. Oh, we're back. Good. Yes, I think efficient is it makes me feel more comfortable, because I'm not, I really, something in me is uncomfortable with the word, like with shortcuts. And
I agree.
We're constantly looking for shortcuts, aren't we? So,
I agree.
So
I agree.
Talk us through developing a personalized and efficient warm-up.
Efficient.
What does that look like to you?
So the way that I talk about it with my singers, and the way that I talk about this when I'm talking about it with my teachers, is we're looking to warm up, to get ready to sing, the body, the breath, and the voice. And so I sort of like to have those three aspects, understanding that those are the three aspects that we're really looking toward. And finding a way to make those the most efficient as possible, as efficient as possible. And trying to work backwards then. So what is it that you do the most in your set, or in your recital, or in your in the opera, in the show? What are you doing the most in that set? So if we take, for example, if I take a CCM singer, for example, you have maybe three 45-minute sets.
Let's just clarify what CCM means.
Oh, sorry.
For many people.
Yep. Contemporary. So not contemporary Christian music,
which is
contemporary commercial music is what I'm talking about. Yep. Although, yes,
and also not contemporary country music, which is the CCM is. Yeah, it's a problematic it's a problematic acronym, isn't it? But anywho, everyone knows what we're talking about. CCM, contemporary commercial music.
Basically, someone who's in a band.
Yeah.
If you're going to be on stage for, say, 45 minutes, what are you doing the most in that 45 minutes? And take into consideration whether you're playing an instrument or not at the same time.
Yeah.
So if you're, for example, if you are a keyboard player and you're standing and you have a pedal, and the same thing with, obviously, with guitar players, you've got a pedal there.
Yeah.
Where is your weight distribution going to be for the most part? What is your body going to want to do as you are playing your instrument and singing? What is your mic placement? What are you doing in terms of basically what is your body going to be doing? As well as what is your instrument going to be doing? So what is your voice going to be doing at the same time? So are you primarily singing in heavy mechanism or chest voice or mode 1 or whatever you want to call it? All the terms. Throw me a term. I'm pretty sure I know what you mean.
Yes.
Are you primarily singing in that mode, and what is your body doing?
Yes.
And then work backwards from there. So if you need to get to a point where your instrument is able to sing with that maximum phonation levels, I mean, if you need maximum intensity and you need chest voice sound for 45 minutes, and you also need to get to the point where your body is not going to be locked by your weight distribution or by the position that you love being in as you're on your mic. If you love being in this position on your mic the whole time, forward and one leg forward and locked this way, that's fine. Recognize that that's what you want to do. I mean, maybe think about changing it while you're in that, but recognize that that's what you want to do. That's what your body wants to do. And then incorporate the opposite into your warm-up. So when we talk about body, breath, voice, then we're talking about in the body part of the warm-up, what I'm asking the body to do then is, if I know that my my right foot is doing the pedal for the most part, and my left leg is going to have a lot of weight on it, or that's the way I sing forward this way into a mic, or I'm on the keys and my hands, I don't know if you can see, my hands are like this forward and my body wants to be forward, or I'm one of those rock stars who plays the guitar way down at the knees, if that's the way my body goes. So whatever that is, that's the opposite you're going to do in the body warm-up. So say I'm a singer and I know that I'm forward and I know that I'm weight on my right leg. So I know that my right leg's forward and I know I'm weight that way. So you're going to be doing lots of rocking back in your warm-up, and you're going to make it rhythmic. So that's going to be your back rock, and then you're going to add breath to that back rock or to that back stretch, if you want to call it that.
Great.
So you're going to make it a part of the rhythmic stretch and warm-up that comes along with, and the breath is going to be part of that. So you're going to do something that helps you helps the body to kinesthetically know that the air is moving into the body. But that is a gasp breath, right? We want the or something along those lines to get the breath moving, kinesthetically aware that the breath is moving. So over the lips is great for that. And then adding phonation to that. So if you are going toward primarily chest voice phonation or mode 1 or whatever, if that's what you're going toward, you're going to start in a primarily head voice phonation, going toward your chest voice phonation. And you're going to do lots of stretches. So you're just going to start at the top and back down with, I don't know, tongue twirl if that works for you. So you're going to add it to your stretch back and forth. So if I got this, So head voice right down into chest voice, up into head voice. So the first part of the warm up is, or the first third is mostly head voice, and then you're mixing down and mixing down so that by the end of your warm up, you are mostly chest voice with perhaps a little bit of release into head voice if that's what you do.
What I love about what you've just said is the kinesthesia of the warm up, and as you know, I presented in Sweden on this very subject, a joint paper with Associate Professor Di Hughes from Sydney Macquarie University. And I love what you're doing here in that essentially you're encouraging the singer to be within their instrument, to be mindful, aren't you, of and to be functionally aware of what their body is doing while they are singing.
Yeah. And that, I mean, that is something I have to say for my CCM singers, that's something that isn't quite as top of mind as it is for classical singers and for the music theater singers as much. Just because I think as classical singers, we spent so much time like working this instrument and doing all these things and, you know, figuring out and blah, blah, blah. So whereas, right, so our CCM, and so our classical singers, oftentimes I'm working from affect actually. So in a warm up for my classical singers, I'm often asking them to do something slightly different, definitely still physical, but working from more of what's the character that you're going toward in this, right? Because my CCM singers or the CCM singers that I work with tend to have tend to be a little bit more aware of what their emotional level is going to be, how they're going to communicate, what's going to happen that way, and not quite, and then just sort of drag the physicality along with that emotional level.
Yes.
So connecting them into the physicality and the kinesthetic awareness, I think, is important. So then for classical singers, we're doing, again, something similar. If you're, you know, if you're singing, if you're singing oratorio, for example, so I'm going to stand with my book, with whatever, you know, I'm going to stand in front of this room and I'm going to sing beautifully. Well, that's wonderful. Your arms are going to drop off halfway through if you're not aware of what's happening with again, that is also about weight distribution, but about releasing through the arms and understanding what's happening there. But also then coming into the warm-up then becomes your characterization opportunity. So if I am, I don't know, Elijah in Mendelssohn's Elijah. So I'm a big old prophet, big old, you know, prophet from way long time ago. So that warm up then becomes, and of course that's a male role. So that is primarily chest voice or TA dominant singing. So that role is still coming from the top down into that chest voice sound, but doing it as Elijah would do it. So you're coming at it with this kind of, you know, Old Testament gravitas into the role. So the breathing is all part of how Elijah would do the breathing. So any of the movements that you make are all releasing movements, but they're this kind of movement. I don't know if you can see. So they're this kind of, and my inhalation is always stretching and opening into gravitas. So yeah.
So we're talking about task-specific warm-ups, aren't we?
Yes.
We're talking about kinesthetic, you know, that kinesthesia aspect of our warm-up. Now we're starting to talk about task-specific, the task-specific nature of the warm-up. And in fact, I've just been writing a script for a video coming up later in the channel, and the main source was an article by Mary Sandage and Matthew Hock. They've done a great, very short article, but it's about physiology training, and they talk about these very things. And so yeah, this stuff is research based, isn't it? It's not just
Oh, yes, it is.
experiential. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
it is. And this is, I mean, this is, I didn't know that it was research based or that there was real science behind
Mm,
it
mm,
until, very recently. It just seemed to be really useful and seemed to
yeah.
be successful. And so why not? I mean,
Why?
it makes sense.
Yeah.
And then of course, yeah. And then of course he's go, oh, good. That's actually science. Great.
Yes.
Bonus.
Thank you, science. Backed me up. Very good. So let's jump ahead because again, do you know what? I've just noticed, I don't know whether you've done this on purpose, but you've got a clock behind you. Did you know that?
I do have a clock behind me. It's not on purpose. It's where it always is. I didn't move it specifically for
Oh
that.
dear. So I can keep an eye on the time. I don't want to keep you late. Let's no. Oh, you're fabulous. Let's jump across to a topic. Now, this is an area that is often overlooked and it's often brushed over, and I think as a result, cool downs are often the poor second fiddle, the poor brother to warm ups, and yet in so many respects, cool downs are so important.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
and I don't think we singing pedagogues, which is I think the term you said on your little Facebook post today.
Sometimes do.
I think we probably it's partly our fault, that we don't.
For not insisting.
We don't place. We kind of say and don't forget to do. We go through this big long explanation of warm ups, and then what we don't do is we don't then explain, and we go, oh, and then of course you do your cool downs, and that's kind of all we say. Or
Yes.
if we do, we go, and because we've got to work the lactic acid out of the the musculature and that's kind of all we say.
Yeah.
And yet there is so much more. Well, there's not a lot more to it, but equally there is a lot more to it in the importance of actually doing the cool down, isn't there?
I agree. I mean, I personally hate doing cool down. I'm like, okay, I'm done now. I'm done. Just let me go. Let me go have some wine.
Yeah.
I'm good. I sang. I'm
Yeah.
fine.
I survived.
Yeah, I'm good. But so, and again, here's for me, the cool down is basically just the opposite of whatever you did in the warm up.
Yeah.
So, it's exactly the same. So I'm taking, if you've done primarily a CCM set, if you've done a CCM set and you're primarily in chest voice the entire time, and especially if you have a rock star position that you are holding for a long period of time through that set, even if you're moving through it, but your default position is something like that. And for oratorio singers, especially if you're, and choral singers, I'm holding that music for an hour or 2 hours at a time, standing still, holding music. So whatever that default position is, that's what you're going to get back out of the system. So you're going to stretch against it. You're going to move through other movements that are opposite. You're going to get the other muscles involved. And the same thing with the singing. So sopranos who are coming through, you're gonna move down into chest voice for a little bit. You're gonna just sit there for a while and just let the folds relax and get thick for a while. and if you've been using thick fold action for a long time, you want to thin those folds out a little bit. You want to just get the breath moving in a different way through.
Yes.
It's very similar, and it's really it really is about health. That is yeah. And I've had singers say to me, this hasn't happened to me, but I have had singers say to me that if they make time for their cool down, that they feel like that's actually a lovely moment for them to also be internally reflective of their performance. So they get this extra bonus of having this just sort of space for themselves. And a cool down it's not about how much time it is, but it truly doesn't need to be longer than 10 minutes. And I feel the same way about warm-ups as well. They don't need to be longer than 10 minutes, depending on your voice. There are some voices that need longer than that to warm up, absolutely. But most of the time, you can get a good warm-up in less than 10 minutes, if you're being efficient and intentional about it. And same with a cool down. So that little chunk of time, just that little chunk to be in your instrument for a minute, and also to just have that reflection. I have had singers say that they find that very, very useful, that little moment of reflection post performance.
Yeah,
like I said, it's not really happened for me, but
yeah, and I add to, especially with my, I only teach CCM singers typically, and especially for my regular giggers, I encourage them to, at the end of a full cool down, to also do some steaming. And I find some steaming at the end of a cool down, so that it doesn't replace a cool down, it is the culmination of a cool down. And sometimes that steaming, a cool down can be simply done while you're bumping out. You don't have to be in a room by yourself doing these exercises.
Absolutely.
The same can be said for a warm-up. The warm-up, because the warm-up is not a technical workout of your voice. It is a preparatory process that is preparing the muscles for performance load.
Absolutely.
The same thing when it comes to your cool down. You can be doing it as you're bumping out. I do my cool downs as I'm bumping out PA and rolling leads, and the steaming can happen at home. You don't have to take your steamer to the gig. It can happen before you go to bed, and it's just that wonderful heat and soothing, and it just helps to move any retained fluid, and
absolutely.
And so I always add that on there as well. Awesome.
Genius.
So have you got any other thoughts about efficient warm-ups as opposed to fast warm-ups?
Well, again, and just what I said as well, is to know your own instrument, know your voice.
Yes.
And this is something that obviously, a teacher or a coach can help with as well. Know what is your warm-up, sort of just what do you need? What do you need to get you there?
Can we just camp on that for a second? Because that is such an understated point. Everyone is anatomically different.
Yeah.
And everyone, some people can swim long distance. We just had the Commonwealth Games, and you're part of the Commonwealth.
Yes, we are.
Obviously, you didn't do as well as Australia, but nonetheless, and certainly not in the pool. But some people can do the 1,500 meters. Some people's biology is built to do it. Obviously, they train towards it. But when you get to that elite level, these young people are being handpicked. Their body types and everything is being directed into what their body's performance. The sports science behind that is quite complex. And I think there's something in that for us. I think there's more research to be done in the area of voice in this space. What is the biology of your voice best suited to? Is it best suited to long distance running? Is your voice that will easily or readily, with training, do that 4 sets a night stint? Or is it a short, sharp 45-minute, mini concert type? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I agree. And, I have a colleague who, she knows that she needs 20 to 25 minutes to warm up to the point where she feels her voice is fresh.
Yeah.
But I also have students, and this is this is a classical singer, but I also have students who at the 20 to 25 minute point, they should have been performing 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, okay.
So they've passed that initial freshness of the voice, and we're losing that initial fresh start,
Yeah.
So it really does depend on you, the singer, obviously what rep and all that kind of thing, but it really does depend on this instrument and what this instrument does. And it behooves you, as I say, to know, just the same as if you're a CCM singer, or it behooves you to understand what your voice does in a mic and which mics work for your voice. You must, or what you need to do on the soundboard to make up for whatever the mic is doing in your voice, or the way that the mic is amplifying your voice. It is just as important as something like that, understanding what your voice does.
Oh, such a great point. And this is where we start to step into singers thinking about their craft as much more than a larynx. We start to think about, as you say, what type of mic best suits your voice. I've used this analogy in previous videos. It's a bit like Harry Potter and going into Ollivander's room, and it's in many respects the wand picks the wizard. It's not the other way around. And finding that right mic for you, and this is why I'm such a great believer in contemporary singers owning their own microphone, is because if not, you are going to be singing into a Shure SM58. That's what you'll sing into.
These are terrible for some voices.
My voice, it's like I'm singing through wet cement. It's so hard.
It would be.
It's so hard on my voice. Whereas I own my favorite capsule to sing through is an 87A, a Shure 87A. Incidentally, this is not an advertisement for Shure. Some people prefer, I've got a Sennheiser in here, a wireless Sennheiser. Yeah. Some people prefer Sennheiser capsules. Find out what is your preferred mic. Such a great point. I'm so glad you raised it.
And not to belabor the point, but to add, I think, I also ask all of my singer-songwriters to make an appointment with a sound person and to just play and record and play and record. So see what are the effects on the board, what's available to you.
Yeah.
You as a singer-songwriter, especially those who have come out of the classical tradition where they have had classical training, so they know what to do in their own voice to get a certain sound.
Yeah.
But they don't understand what a mic and a board can do for your sound. And they have no idea what's available to them just in terms of color. And they often think that what they're hearing on the radio is actually someone's vocal production when it's not. It's a soundboard production, which is wonderful. It's fantastic. That's what's available to you. Use it. But so along the same lines, understanding not just what mic works for you, but really understanding what the soundboard can do for you as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's that. Thank you so much for making such a range of great points in our discussion. And I'm looking at the time and recognizing that you have got to get to bed very soon. So I've got a little clock over here as well, Ded. So it's all good. So we had one more question that we could have discussed, and maybe we'll do that again in the future. But we're not going to do it now, because what we're going to do is we are going to go straight to a Q&A, and we're going to go looking for some questions from everyone, and then I'm going to let you go and catch some Z's. We'll come back right after this. Okay, so let's talk through some Q&A. I saw some questions way back up here, and we won't see the questions on the screen, but I was talking to Linda. Hi, Linda. I was talking to Linda about how we can better do these questions because it's so hard for me as a guy. I don't scan very well. You know how guys stand at the fridge and they're just looking at there and going,
Yes.
I don't know where anything is, and your wife comes along and says, it's right there, right in front of you. Well, so, sort of the same thing with finding questions in amongst the live chat. But nonetheless, I'm going to do my best today because we haven't organised anything other than that. I think we've... here we go. So Matt, who is a regular to the channel.
Hi, Matt.
Matt, in fact, Matt is always the first in live chat. He's always half an hour early. So, and I think I saw earlier that he's... Anywho, the question for Dr. Shannon. Do you have any advice? Maybe we should call you... So we've got Dr. Dan. Maybe we should call you Dr. Shan.
Dr. Shan.
Dr. Shan. Do you have any advice for an operatic bass who wants to extend his range both to lower notes as well as higher baritone notes?
Well, yes. You mean besides getting with a really good teacher to help you out on that?
And look, let's not skip over that. I mean, you know, one of the challenges of having the YouTube channel, as I do, and as Karen does, because Karen's got a great channel, is it can seem like we're giving permission to learn from YouTube, and we're not. We're keen to always direct people to private tuition because ultimately, yes, you can learn things on YouTube, but you will hit a point where you need that that skilled human being, a good quality singing teacher, to diagnose, direct, correct. And so let's not. I just wanted to. Sorry, I jumped in there.
No, I agree 100%. I mean, yeah. and part of the reason for that is just because the instrument is internal. So you can't, we don't have a very good understanding necessarily kinesthetically of what's happening, you know? So, and we can't see it.
Absolutely.
So, for moving down, for anyone moving down in the range, I often work from vocal fry. So working from just in that low, moving up through vocal fry. And then again, for anyone moving in the upper range, coming down from head voice and falsetto, especially for men, coming down from falsetto. So and kind of tripping down into the full voice, if you will, or the heavy mechanism, if you will.
I think fortunately here on the channel, I think I've tried very hard to make. I think everyone kind of does know because I try to use the language.
And I've seen your
across
videos too. I think you're pretty.
It's confusing though, isn't it?
I just like to make sure that I'm being as clear as possible.
I know, and it's such a controversial subject, isn't it? Registration, especially amongst you know expert singing teachers, people who really know their stuff. It's a controversial subject.
The more learned you get, the more you come across the folks who are like, well, you can't possibly call it head voice. It has nothing to do with head. You can't possibly. I'm like, but every singer who comes into my studio knows that terminology. So
any person who, look, can I say to you on this subject, and then we've got to get back to the question, but. And everyone, make sure you're asking your questions because I can't find any other questions. But so ask your questions in the chat section. Oh, I've seen one from Linda. We'll come back to you in a second, Linda. The funny thing about my experience on YouTube is when I first started on YouTube, I had been taught you don't call it head voice, you don't call it chest voice because it's. And look, I subscribe to that idea. It's very old language. It's antiquated. But here's the deal: anyone who It didn't take me long to realize that, but the vernacular on YouTube is head voice and chest voice. And everyone outside of experienced quality singing teachers don't know of it being called anything else. Here on this channel, hopefully that's changing, but nonetheless, we're all amongst friends. here on this channel at
So I
least.
am curious though. So what do you use in the studio then?
Yeah, okay. So I use the Thurman and Welch model,
Okay.
the Body,
So
Mind and Voice book,
yes,
and so I use pulse register, lower, upper, and falsetto flute,
and falsetto. Yeah.
and then whistle, which sits above that,
Yeah.
recognised as a vocal fold posture
Yeah.
that some singers are able to do.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you apply the TA dominance or CT dominance. The challenge of that language is it does take a singer to be, it has to be explained. It's not an easy high low, head chest. You have to
Yeah.
have a little bit of understanding, but that's what good singing lessons are hopefully about.
Yeah.
And so I talk that language in my studio,
Yeah.
but equally, I probably need to do more reading around mode 1, mode 2. At the moment, to me, that's just semantics. I'm happy for you to educate me actually, but I only hear mode 1 and mode 2 as being head voice, chest voice. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think that's Scott McCoy, who's I think that's his terminology primarily, and he has some specific, glottal configuration,
Yeah.
and he has some specific parameters around those terms. But yeah, they kind of essentially break down to head voice, chest voice.
Do you know? I am so reassured to hear you say that because I've for quite some time, because I believe it's actually a French researcher back in 2009 that first coined these terms. But I think you're right. I think Professor McCoy has really
in pedagogy, in voice pedagogy. I think he was the first one to start to use it informally. But I could be wrong.
But for so long, I've been thinking to myself, I must be missing something. Am I? And that's why I've always been couching when I refer to mode 1, mode 2. Look, I haven't done my reading on this. I don't know enough about it. But I know enough to know that on the superficially, it just sounds head voice, chest voice. But you and I both have to, I guess, acknowledge Professor McCoy is a leading pedagogue. So
absolutely.
Maybe one day I'll be able to get Scott McCoy on the channel. Wouldn't that be wonderful? And he can explain mode 1, mode 2.
And he can explain it fully. I mean, I think the main issue with when we use CT dominant, TA dominant, when we use that kind of terminology as well, is that it's so focused here on what the folds are doing, and we leave out so much of the acoustics, the registration that happens in the.
And you're absolutely right. But I'm sorry, that was a very flippant use of the word "but."
No.
I would further to that one of the challenges I think that we face is that there is this growing understanding around acoustics, isn't there? Resonance.
Yes.
Kenneth Bozeman and Ian Howe, who are doing some really exciting work in that space, and our understanding about that acoustic and resonant influence back on the oscillatory patterns of the vocal folds. Oh wow, such a big topic.
I know.
Yeah. And you have to get to bed. So I want to come back to. We will shelve that for another day.
That's a whole other thing.
So big. It is so big. Okay, question from Linda. Using straws in cool downs. Are these part of a cool down normally, or should they be?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I actually have some singers who use straws for warm-ups as well. Again, I think this one comes back to what is most useful for you. Yeah. So singers who tend to use a lot of overpressurization, I find that and constriction, I find that the straws are very useful. And that's really just another SOVT, the semi-occluded vocal tract exercise. So tongue trills can be useful in the same way. Is useful in the same way. Anything that's semi-occluding the vocal tract. But yeah, I have several singers who use straws as part of their both warm up and cool down.
And the reason we use straws a lot in rehabilitative work is because they posture the vocal folds in such a way as to have a this is going to be very non-technical terms, but it brings the vocal folds together in a very massaging kind of way. It's helping to reduce swelling and those sorts of things. So definitely we can use that in a cool down kind of manner. And
absolutely.
And we can also, as you've just said, we can also use it in our warm-ups. But equally, you don't want to do, and you've just made this point, you don't want to do only one activity as a warm-up or as a cool down. You need to do a range of task-specific activities that, anyway, we covered that earlier, didn't we? We've got one more question, and then, sorry, do you want to say something?
I was going to say, too, and straws are so popular right now.
It's the in thing, isn't it?
They're so in, and that's wonderful. They can be so useful, but in my experience, they don't work for everyone.
Sure.
So again, it comes back to knowing what is really useful for you, experimenting to know what's very useful and successful for you.
I mostly only use straws in my studio. In fact, here I've got a whole bunch of them here. I only use straws in my studio, firstly for rehabilitative clients, or if a student walks in with a compromised voice due to sickness or tiredness. They're the two students that I will use straw work for. But I think Linda's question is valuable, and yes, you can use them as a warm up and a cool down, but I personally, I don't. You know what? I still use the old lip bubbles a lot.
I love tongue trills. Tongue trills my favorite thing.
Yeah, they're a great, great warm-up activity. Okay, one last question, and then you have to go to bed. Okay, one more question. I saw it here earlier. This is from another regular, Falamucci. Question: is overtone singing, Alien called by Tom Burke, a good exercise for warming up the voice? Overtone singing.
Overtone singing. That's an excellent question. Yeah, I saw that Tom had a little video up there a couple days ago, and I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. I personally have not been particularly successful in achieving overtone singing, so I don't incorporate it myself, but I am very open to being able to, I understand the physiology of it. I just, personally, so I'm very open to it. And I think, again, that comes back to if you find it's useful, then of course.
The thought I would add to that, and in fact, this actually goes also for lip bubbles or tongue trills. It doesn't have to be fancy for it to work.
Yeah.
It can, a 5-note scale can, on an open vowel, when done correctly, can be of wonderful benefit to the voice.
Absolutely.
So, and straws are the in thing right now. Back in the 90s, it was lip bubbles and tongue trills. And in 10 years' time, it'll be something else. It'll be wonderful. Someone will come up with something new. I find, though, that even with straws, with lip bubbles, tongue trills, you actually, often when I see people doing them, they're often doing them incorrectly. And it's not to say that they're necessarily damaging their voice, but they may not be getting the full benefit of those activities that they think they are getting simply because it's a in thing or a fancy thing to do. And so, and I'd probably lean towards that as a part of our answer for the overtone singing is to do overtone singing, as you just pointed out, Shannon, it's actually a really challenging skill. And very few people can do it. and do it well. There's a reason why Tom has had such wide success, is because he's actually really rare as a person who can actually do it very well. So,
and I think he's found a way to explain it well. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, knowing him, I'm sure he's found a way to explain it well. So I haven't looked at that video yet, but yeah.
Okay, we have had, as I knew we would, such a great chat, and it's been so good to have you on the channel, and thank you for being so generous, not only with your time, which, you know, dearie me, I turned into a pumpkin at a much earlier hour than midnight, but also with your knowledge and your expertise, and you know, I do consider you an international friend.
Yes.
And it's been so good to have you and your lovely smiling face on the channel. And so I'm going to close up now. Let me just jump over to here. But I do, as we say goodbye, I'll get you to say goodbye to everyone just as we
it's
close
just been
up.
A pleasure. Thanks so much, Dan. A real pleasure.
It's been really good to have you join us. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Shannon Coates, isn't she just fabulous? And it has been so good to have her join us. And I hope, I know you will have got so much out of that discussion. Please leave a thumbs up on the video to just appreciate her and her expertise. In next week, we'll be back with our live hangout, with just a general live hangout. That doesn't mean you shouldn't tune in, as you should, but in 2 weeks' time, we have someone who you are going to love, Dr. Matthew Edwards, one of the world's leading experts on CCM pedagogy. You guys have got to tune into that. It's in 2 weeks. I'll remind you next week, but I just wanted to let you know that we'll be doing that. Of course, if this is the first time you've ever tuned into one of my videos, I'm so glad you did. I hope you've enjoyed the hangout. Please subscribe to the channel and hit that white bell icon just so that you don't miss another one of the channel's videos. And we would love you to join our community. As you've probably seen in the live chat, this is an encouraging group of singers from right across the globe. And we're just looking for you to join our ever-swelling numbers of singers from across the globe who want to raise their voice in song. I look forward to seeing you in the next Voice Essentials video. I'm Dr. Dan. Sing well.